situation of the population in general.
So these are sub-programs for the government, and the strategic plan of education covers the work in these 22 programs. And as you can see, the first sub-program is making education available to all without any discrimination. Second, developing the technical education, and of course, developing the education system pre-university, and we shall be talking about that with Dr. Amira, also fighting drug addiction, disseminating the culture of science and innovation, discouraging entrepreneurship, encouraging entrepreneurship and scientific research. So Egypt has covered the needs of children, women, and special needs. And the Ministry of Planning and Economic Development in Egypt has prepared a guide for the Sustainable Development Plan. And I would like to introduce you to that because this is made available on the website of the Ministry of Planning and Economic Development in Egypt. And people can take knowledge of that. And of course, I have chosen out of it two very important things related to women and gender. Next slide, please. So this is in detail the dimension of the different social categories, including women. So here the targeted category is women. And so we have as a strategic objective improving the livelihood of the Egyptian citizens. And these are the main programs that we have included. Someone has opened the microphone, apparently. The lady is on mute. Dr. Mushira is on mute.
Dr. Mushira is muted.
أنا آسفة.
Excuse me, she's saying. Can you hear me now?
تمام.
دي البرامج الرئيسية اللي أنا
So these are the main programs that I'm working on related to women, and these programs have been included into the strategic plan of education and the executive plan, and there are also the sub-programs, for example, building the human skills. So I prepare my program for including women in the labor market and also encouraging the different initiatives, activating the role of associations and developing the local community in training women economically. So this is an example. In this guide, you will find different examples on how, while establishing the plan, we have worked on these programs and on the interventions that are required. And the idea was for me to prepare programs and activities, and we shall see that in the next slide. So activities and programs that would lead to the execution of the agenda. So, for example, fighting gender discrimination. And here we are going to say that we have to activate the economic and social participation of women. Next slide. So this is the slide that I wanted you to see. Dr. Mushira, we want to focus on the education of girls, please, just for the sake of time. So the interventions and activities that are proposed to cover the needs of the different social categories. We have awareness programs in the rural areas on the importance of the completion of education of women, and these are performance indicators related to that. Also creating women-friendly schools so as to be up to the expectations of girls and women. Organizing awareness campaigns amongst the girls on the early marriage problems and the problems that can be created by early marriage. Developing educational curricula so as to fight discrimination and work on gender equality, creating awareness campaigns in schools and universities, also to protect women against domestic violence. We have, as you know, rates of school dropouts, and we are working to fight that through different training programs. So we have different performance indicators, and we are working on those. And for the sake of time, I won't be able to delve into all of these indicators. So I would like to call Dr. Amira Fauzi to continue the presentation. Hello, can you hear me? Yes. I would like to thank my colleague, Dr. Mushira, for her excellent presentation. I always take pleasure listening to her when it comes to things related to strategic planning, because in fact, she is very efficient in what she does, and she has full knowledge of the different principles. And I'd like to thank her for the excellent presentation, and I hope to be able to always work with Dr. Mushira. So I'd like to continue from where she stopped. It is the part related to the Egyptian government's efforts deployed in order to support uh, gender-based education. So there's here a slide that would explain to you that the Egyptian education system is one of the best systems in the MENA region, so Middle East and North African region. So this is how the region is called, the MENA region, and you can find here the different figures: 25 million students, 60,000 schools, approximately 1 million teachers. And the slide that has been presented by Dr. Mushira has clarified that there are priorities within the plan, including developing a curricula until the 6th grade, and this would include also assessment methods, as well as creating different platforms for the girls, and also developing the educational curricula for girls and for women. So this is the starting point here on the different efforts deployed by the Egyptian government to support gender-based education. Next slide. In fact, there was a very simple plan that was created by the Ministry of Education in order to support gender equality. And so there was a support given through the education, and what is meant by that was the reform of the curricula, and I will be delving into that in the upcoming slides, since this is my area of specialization. And this is going to be done through 3 phases. There was the development of the private curricula for the students in general and for women and girls with special needs specifically. To the left, we had the support of the executive people inside of the ministry, and I mean by that the directorates and the different educational departments that have been trained, and also providing equal opportunities for all categories in the different ministries and educational departments. Next slide, please. The first thing was the training of the stakeholders. A big number of trainings had taken place in the Ministry of Education, and training of the supervisors also in the Ministry of Education and in the different departments related to the field of gender responsive education. There have been trainings for the students and the teachers on the right understanding of the gender responsive education and how to implement this in reality. And also there have been trainings for the different social assistants and for the different psychologists and for the members of the unit of equal opportunities in the general diwan of the ministry. And so these were the instructions given to the different specialized people who were entrusted with disseminating the culture of awareness on the importance of gender responsive education. Now, regarding the curricula, I do think, well, that maybe you have gotten an information somehow on the reform of the curricula in Egypt. It is called the 2.0 project, And it is one of the most important projects in the education reform process. It's called the curriculum reschool. So it's the reform of curricula. And as you can see in the slide, in fact, and allow me to say it in a simplified manner because it's very sophisticated and there are many details, but let me say it in simple terms. In fact, the reform of the curricula is based on integrating a group of issues and challenges that are faced by students currently, and they are expected to face those in the future, including gender discrimination, discrimination against women. And so we have identified the 5 issues, most importantly, gender discrimination, discrimination against the special needs, religious discrimination, racial and ethnic discrimination. And under these great issues and very important issues, there has been a number of amendments for the Egyptian curricula, and this has started from the nursery, from the kindergarten, and until the third primary grade, and we are going to continue until the 6th grade. And in fact, when it comes to gender responsive education, 4 main points have been taken into consideration. First, avoiding the stereotyping or gender stereotypes related to women. For example, the pictures and photos, let's say. And the assessment is based on avoiding gender stereotypes. And I'll be giving you an example into slides later on. Please pay attention to that because this is going to give you further clarification. At another level, in fact, there was a gender equality in learning content. So in the learning content, what has been really taken into account is the gender equality. So the content should have characters from 2 genders. Maybe I could start with a woman, then with a man. So I've only chosen just one example. At a third level, gender equality in teaching practices and attitudes. So the idea was to have teaching practices and attitudes away from stereotypes and guaranteeing gender equality, so as to have an active learning. And so as for all those who participating in the educational environment would work together collectively in order to have the best possible achievement out of the curricula. At the 4th level, in fact, the effort was to defy traditional gender stereotypes, be it at the level of the teachers or the directors of the educational processes in Egypt. So the idea was to defy the traditional gender stereotypes. For example, the characters would always be presented without any specific mention. So we would find that, for example, the biggest percentage of characters would be men inside of the books, and just a very small percentage of women are mentioned inside of the books. So we've changed that, and we've shed light on the successful people in each of the areas, be it art, science, etc. And these can be men and women. And this has been done in Arabic, in French, in math, in sciences, and in many other courses. For example, in the Arabic language curricula. So we have a very successful character, Mary Estokrabi, which is a very important character, and she's a woman, and we've shed light on the role that she played in all the eras. And also we have in sports, we have a hero, which is Hodaya Malak, a taekwondo hero, and she's a girl as well. But of course, we don't just focus on women. We have a parallel focus on men and on boys who have had a very important role to play in history. So there was also a focus on people with special needs. So this was related to curricula. Now there's an example that we're going to present, and thank you, Dr. Rajab, for giving us the opportunity. So how to integrate the different concepts related to gender and gender-responsive concepts inside of the curricula. So this has been done throughout the different phases. In the first phase, we've had multidisciplinary curricula and aspects. This was the phase 1, grade K to 3. And then the phase 2 was from grades 4 to 6, whereby we would integrate the different targeted issues in the courses, for example, Arabic, English, social studies, science, etc., and also integrating the targeted issues between the different courses. So 2 phases in the current curriculum reform programs from K to grade 6. So phase 1 grades K to 3 and phase 2 grades 4 to 6. Whereby, as I've said, the targeted issues would be integrated. Dr. Amira, you still have 5 minutes, please. You still have 5 minutes. The conversation is very interesting and we have many questions in the chat box. So clearly this is an area of interest for many of the participants. But just to give the floor to Sudan to be able to give their presentation. So please be brief, and then I will ask you the permission of the ministry to publish this presentation on the Egyptian page related to the KIX Center, if this is approved by the ministry, of course, so that it would be made public as a full version to everyone. Of course, I have the pleasure. Could you please move to a slide from a school book just to reflect the presentation that I've given? So as you can see, you have boys and girls, different colors, students with special needs, and you can see that there's an equal number of all of these students. I'll give you an idea on the workshop in Senegal. Dr. Mushira, in fact, has given you an idea on that. Can you please move to the next slide? So we've been invited from Egypt, Dr. Mushira and myself, and we've been lucky to travel to Senegal. Of course, we are not members in the Ongai institution, but Egypt was invited as a pioneer country in the gender responsive education. And the aim out of this workshop is to raise awareness of the participants on the obstacles that are faced by the gender responsive education and raising our awareness on the importance of gender responsive education. And of course, the government of Egypt, represented by the Ministry of Education, has deployed efforts in order to enhance gender responsive education, and the Egyptian experience, in fact, was highlighted in the conference in Senegal, and there was a participation from Nigeria, Senegal, and many other countries. And in fact, there was a difference made between equality and equity, and how to get to the transformation phase. So how to shift from an inequality to an equality, and then to the equity and what goes beyond these 2 phases. So the most important slide is the last one that clarifies. So it's just before the flag of Egypt. Just before that, is the picture of heart and mind. Thank you. So one of the most important things that we were able to achieve is a great awareness of the issue that would lead to successful results at the level of implementation. And such an awareness is done through 3 things. Intellectually, first, a better understanding the analysis of the social gender and its role in planning the educational sector, and at the level of the heart there should be trust in our capacity to enhance gender responsive education, because this is a right to women and girls all over the world. And also there should be a commitment by the different parties to execute and implement in light of each and everyone's capacities. And also there should be a participation from all stakeholders. There should be a curiosity to know about the new policies, about the new procedures, about the new practices and strong practices that would enhance work on the field. And at the level of the and field level or implementation, we have to know more about the skills and procedures and processes through which I would be able to implement the gender responsive education. I hope that we were able to convey to you as much as possible a clear image of the situation in Egypt when it comes to gender responsive education. Thank you, Dr. Rasha, for having given us the opportunity to take the floor. And we thank the interpreters as well. And I thank my colleague, Dr. Mushira, for her great efforts. And I'd like to thank all the participants. And I hope that we were able to convey a clear image. And good luck to all of you and to all of your efforts as well. Thank you, Dr. Mushira Abdulraouf. And thank you, Dr. Amira. Thank you for this very detailed presentation that gives a national vision and that gives the details of the different policies, procedures, and implementation until we got to the curricula and the different school practices. In fact, we have comments and questions inside of the chat box, and this shows to which extent the participants are interested in the topic and to which extent they admire the Egyptian experience in this field. And we shall be postponing the answers to these questions once we listen to the presentation of Sudan. Because the time is very limited. So I would like to call Dr. Ayman. Would you please introduce yourself and start the presentation on Sudan? I'd like to thank you. Can you please share the document? Hello, everyone. I'd like to convey my salutations to Dr. Mushira Abdulraouf and to Dr. Amira Fawzi for their valuable presentation. My name is Ayman Badri. I work at UNESCO, Khartoum's office in Sudan. I'm responsible for the education sector. For the 9th year, I'm working in this office. As UNESCO, currently, we are the coordinating agency when it comes to the local education group. And we are GPE partners. And this is my first participation in the KIX. I'm very happy to take part in this event. Salutations to you, Rasha, and to all the participants. Next slide, please. So the context in which we are operating now, and we've had the opportunity to work with colleagues from Egypt. So out of this context, we can conclude that the situation in Sudan is a bit difficult compared to the situation in the Arab Republic of Egypt. And in fact, the idea behind your support clarifies to which extent the situation in Sudan is bad. So as Sudanese, I'd like to specifically thank all the countries that have received Sudanese, including Egypt. I'm currently in Egypt because Egypt is receiving a great number of Sudanese that have flown there before the war in April. And currently, Egypt also is receiving a lot of Sudanese who have had to flood their country in order to seek refuge and security in Egypt and also in Chad and Ethiopia etc. So I'd like to thank all of these countries. Thank you for your help, and thank you for having received our citizens, including myself and my family. I just wanted to talk about the main focal areas that UNESCO is working on in Sudan. And I've highlighted in red the part related to the technical and vocational education and training, or what is known as TVET at different levels, be it at the level of the technical or vocational education, and this is reflected in the different curricula, because we are striving to create approaches through which we might be able to learn from the most important lessons and experiences. In red, we would find also a part related to students with disability. And I would like to prone the efforts that you're deploying. In Sudan, there have been pre-war efforts, and there's an urgent need of these efforts now as a result of the impact of the war. Next slide, please. In this slide, I'm sorry that the report is in English. Apologies to our colleagues, our Arab colleagues. So the situation in Sudan was similar to the situation in MENA before the war. But then the situation has changed. So we have around 7 million students out of school. This is the main problem in Sudan. So there was a problem even before the war, he's saying. So the situation even before the war was not similar to any of the countries in the region. So in Khartoum, Kordofan, and Darfur, for example, we have 10,400 schools that were forcibly closed in April 2023. So approximately around 3,000 schools are now a center to receive the different displaced in Sudan. And this has a major impact on education in Sudan. The next slide. I have extracted the slide from the UNHCR and also from the reports of OCHA. Maybe you, when you see the reports, you can have more updated information. The pre-war education has been impacted, and maybe the strike of teachers lasted for about 3 months. And the strike, in fact, has ended on Thursday, and the war was launched on a Saturday. So before the war, we've had the 3 months of teachers' strike. And so the previous year has also been impacted. And currently, because of the war, we are impacted. We are losing educational results for the 3rd year in a row. And this is the education in Sudan. And also, in the plan, in some of the states, in fact, have announced the relaunching of the schools, or maybe a big part of schools are operating, but many of the states, including the Khartoum state, that has the majority of citizens, so they are impacted.
And the schools are still closed for the 2nd year. So our colleagues in the humanitarian cluster and the education group have provided some statistics. Some figures are here in front of you in this slide, and you will have the presentation in case you are interested with the different figures. Next slide. According to the local education group, what is possible to do and what are the priorities, and how might people work in light of the circumstances of the current war? Of course, this happened in a lot of countries before Sudan, and our colleagues from Yemen and Syria, even in Myanmar and other countries such as Afghanistan, have witnessed such wars, and disturbance in education did happen. So, Dr. Mushira, it is very important to determine, as you've said, the priorities and to develop a transition plan for education in the framework of working in education during crisis. Based on that, we have worked on a transitional education plan for 2024-2026. This plan has multiple phases that I won't be dwelling on the details of now. A plan should have different steps and phases, but there's a specificity to Sudan that even the donors take into account, especially that the situation is difficult in some of our areas. And that's why we have worked on a transitional education plan. And I hope that the war will come to an end and that we will all be working on a strategic to build a consensus around the priority, and I will be mentioning those priorities. And of course, we will need for that an analysis and then establish strategic programs taking into consideration the whole. We have focused a lot on local consultations. We have the different stakeholders, i.e. the state, the government, the Ministry of Education, the teachers, the parents, etc. Mainly because we have a private sector that is quite present in Sudan. After all that, people can start working and developing a multi-year program. Next slide, please. And then based on that, determine what the costs will be. And you know that whenever we have a war, it is very important to work on different scenarios. In case the war will continue for X years, in case the war will come to an end, in case the situation will improve. So, and I hope that the situation will get better. This is what we all aspire for and work for. But even though during the crisis, it is very important to plan, taking into consideration the current circumstances. All that is happening with consultation with the local education group representing all partners and donors, as well as the civil society organizations. And so we conduct a leadership effort and consultation with the LEG, the local education group. And based on that, we have an acceptance by the people. The Minister of Education deemed that those are the current priorities. First of all, the teacher salaries, find a solution for the disbursement of teacher salaries, the relocation of IDPs from schools, securing as well a possibility to rehabilitate those schools once the IDPs leave. National exams. Unfortunately, during the previous years, we couldn't organize those exams, and it is very important to find a solution to that. Force train the teachers on Asian emergencies. We have conducted that in some areas, but now we are willing to expand more, mainly in regions that were previously far of reach. So fifth, as well, it is very important to find alternatives such as the e-learning. Concerning the consultation with the local education group, there was a consensus on four priority. First, safe, continuity, inclusive, and equitable access to education. Two, quality and relevance of teaching and learning. And this is something that the learning strategies are mentioning, strategies related to times of war and emergencies. Priority 3, system support currently, and ask for the participation of institutions and international organizations in order to build the capacities. So how shall we build the capacities of the social society and make sure that the education is a continuous process? Priority 4, related to resource mobilization. Maybe you have seen in the previous slides that we have a slight percentage that is needed for the educational process that ask us from us in Sudan to build partnerships with the GPE and other international organizations in order to attract support and assistance and make the sector of education a total priority at its different levels, and ask for the help of the different stakeholders that are currently there and are part of the situation. So concerning the first priority, as I've mentioned, here we have tried to have goals for each and every priority. I know we don't have a lot of time, but let's go back to the previous slide. So concerning the first priority, the first goal was to sustain and expand existing functional education structure. The photo here shows in a remote country, one of our centers. The UNESCO is trying to open new centers and cooperating with the local communities in order to improve a little bit the situation and the infrastructure that is there. Next slide. Concerning the second priority here as well, we have two goals. Here we are focusing on people with disability and as well the TVET, the vocational training. Next slide. So as well, for the third and the fourth objective, we had established and determined goals. In terms of opportunities, the different stakeholders are working on a bottom-up strategy, and it was the first time that we have included the parents, the students, the teachers, the families. As well, in terms of sharing information, we are trying now to put all the information into one platform. And in the next slide, we mentioned the different challenges that we are facing. And I would like to tell you and to tell KIX that we are trying to see how we can benefit from the opportunities of other countries. And here I would like to highlight the experience of Jordan in the field of MS. So it is very important to take that into account when establishing a new strategy and to benefit from the shared experiences with other countries. Second point in that regard is related to the knowledge extraction. And how shall we extract that knowledge and information that are already present related to the current situation of Sudan during the conflict and the crisis, but even for the days ahead. So information that might contribute and then benefit countries that, God forbid, will go through the same experience. Third, integration of knowledge into the emergency context. We in Sudan, our experience was limited because of the war. And I hope that we can cooperate with other parties concerning that point. Fourth, how can we expand our current systems to include technical and vocational training and as well literacy? So how can we expand the systems that we have so we can receive the information related to the public education and high education? And how shall we include the learning outcomes? Because we have a database related to the emergency context, and we shall take into consideration the impact of that on education and the impact of that in terms of learning that targeted person and the beneficiary. How is he evolving? Thank you so much for the opportunity, and I am sorry in case I'm a bit off of time. Thank you so much for this very detailed presentation concerning Sudan. It gives us a lot of hope, especially that a lot of efforts are exerted and that cooperation is there between the different stakeholders. I ask now my colleague Yasmina Osama to facilitate the Q&A session. Yasmina, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Rasha. Thank you to all presenters. We got a couple of questions in the chat right now. The first question is from Samah El-Bauliz from Jordan, and her question is related to that currently Jordan is implementing an integrated education program, and this step has opened the way for many people with special needs specifically to enroll in the education system. Is this system has already applied in Egypt or not? The question is to Dr. Mushira and Dr. Amira. Dr. Mushira and Dr. Amira, the floor is yours to answer.
معلش دكتورة أستأذنك بس إعادة السؤال.
Sure.
Could you please repeat the question?
I'll send it in the chat right now in Arabic. Can you see it now in the chat?
Yes, I see it. Yes, إحنا هنا في مصر بنطبق
In
التعليم.
Egypt, we are implementing this kind of education whereby we integrate the special needs, and we do not call them. So we adopt a different term in Arabic for that, in fact. But there is, in fact, a ministerial decision related to the rate of disability that might be included inside of the specific schools. And of course, there are different approaches that are adopted. I hope I was able to answer the question.
Thank you so much. We have another question from Ms. Ruqayya Akhtar from Bangladesh. The question is to Dr. Amira Fawzi, is how the Egyptian system or the Egyptian National Strategic Planning for Gender Equality and Inclusion has considered the theory of change to be aware to aware the parents and involve them in transforming social gender norms to impact on access to sustainability of education.
ممكن السؤال تاني معلش لان انا الترجمه كانت بتقطع في اوقات معينه.
Could you please repeat the question, please?
Sure, I will send it right now in the chat in Arabic.
يا ريت. في إضافة برضو على سؤال الدمج.
There's an addition to the question related to inclusion, and this was answered by Dr. Mushira. In fact, the Egyptian curricula that is related to the 2.0 project, so the new project on the reform of curricula, has been parallel to different other curricula related to the different courses. So let's say that there's a curricula by the Ministry of Education for the Arabic language. There was another curricula that was developed in parallel for the different students in the integrating schools.
Okay. Thank you so much. We have another question. It's from Zahida Batul from Pakistan. The question is about including learning outcomes in the data collection tools. What are the sort of challenges did you face? This question is to Dr. Ayman. Dr. Ayman, can you hear us?
Do you want me to answer now?
Yes, please.
Loud and clear. Yes, thank you. Thank you very much for the question. I think there is a couple of questions that comes along. Currently, UNICEF has a system where they are willing to share, hopefully, with everyone to include current data. They focus on data only at the numbers level. They do not include learning outcomes. They do not include students. They do not include teachers. They do not include details of students' learning outcomes. So the challenge is Sudan is also a huge country. Whether should we focus on expanding current systems to integrate data, thinking about technical education, higher education, preschool education, out of school education, who are currently not even there? Should it be a distributed or a centralized approach? The ownership of such a system and issues related to privacy. There is a lot of technical support or opinions that we could receive. We have had experience before in developing MS. We have conducted as UNESCO with the Ministry of Education self-assessment. There were 4 other assessments done parallelly. So we have quite good understanding about previous attempts and current existing UNICEF system. And we think that it will be a good idea if we could have quality advice, knowing the situation on how to move forward on that. So this is the type of questions among others that we are currently facing on a data subgroup, and your KIX focal person in Sudan is a member of the transition education plan and also a member of the core data group. So I'm just reflecting also issues that I think are important and could be we could find good opportunity in KIX in seeing how to do this. As my understanding of KIX is that it supports technically this type of work and can provide this type of technical advice to people. Thank you. I hope I have answered the question to your satisfaction.
Thank you so much.
Back to you.
Dr. Rasha, do we have time to address one more question to Sudan?
دكتورة ياسمينة، في سؤال أنا شايفاه في الشات.
والحقيقة في الحقيقة يعني
As a matter of fact, the answers are very important, and I just wanted to talk about the role of KIX. KIX is an acronym of Knowledge, Exchange, and Innovation. So we do support all the efforts related to producing knowledge through the different activities, the reports that are issued from applicative research, and as well as all the initiatives reflecting innovation in the different countries, not to mention as well the exchanges, as is the case now between the member countries. And we have positive experiences and lessons that can be drawn from the different countries. And the colleague from Sudan has talked about the MS and these tools as a priority for digital transformation and the use of technology in order to govern education in the different countries. And this is one of the priorities that have emerged from the latest studies. I'd like to thank all the speakers for their valuable contributions. I would like to thank as well all the positive comments from the participants, such as Dr. Rukia, Dr. Sumaira, and many others. And as a matter of fact, I'd like to for you to recall and to remember the next meeting for Samena. It's in July. Can we know specifically when? Normally,
On 11th
it's the
of July.
second Thursday, so it's on July 11. We are waiting for you for another session whereby we could drink coffee together and we can listen to the valuable experiences and realistic experiences of the member countries. Thank you and see you soon. Bye-bye.
السلام عليكم.
عليكم السلام.
وشكرا جزيلا.
شكرا دكتور أيمن، جزيل الشكر لحضرتك.
Thank you, Dr. Ayman. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Mushira and Dr. Amira, for this valuable presentation.